Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. Before this review kicks off, I want to tell you that we are testing out a new social media app called Symbol. There is a link down there in the description box where you can give it a try, and you can follow me over there at The Needle Drop, all one word. It's a cool new place where I can just kind of share some songs, some newer tracks from the albums I'm reviewing, and just generally songs that I'm liking, and we'll probably throw up some classic stuff on there too, just an app where I can recommend you some songs, new and old, that I'm digging on. Cool? Cool. See you over there, and you're the best. Forever.
Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Future album, Dirty Sprite 2. This is the commercial follow-up to the 2011 mixtape from rapper and singer hailing from Atlanta, Future, who has come a pretty long way in terms of relevance since he first broke in 2012 off the back of some singles like Same Damn Time and the song Turn on the Lights. And the bangers Future was coming out with were at least fun. But the other tracks he would do that had this weird auto-tune crooning on it were the tracks that I sort of most found unbearable. But these were the songs that really would actually make Future hot and give him a particular sort of sound that people sought after and recognized him for. Future usually hops on some pretty good production on his records, but I think his warbly moans just don't really sound that good. Future's style seems pretty one-note, especially on his last full-length album, Honest. And it's not that this record didn't have variety, it's that there were tracks that seemed like this is Future's wheelhouse, and then there were other songs on here that maybe didn't go over quite as well. Future's attempts at being heartfelt on this record were hilarious to me. And then there were the other cuts that were a little middle of the road and just kind of boring and I guess unintelligible. I mean, not only does Future's voice just not sound that fantastic, which is why it's just slathered in auto-tune, but I can hardly make out what he's saying most of the time. However, on this album, I did love Move That Dope. That is a great track. However, this record got a pretty positive reception from those who like to take their rap hedonistic. And Future saw that flame, he saw that fire building, and he continued to feed it directly after the release of this project with a series of very short, concise, hard-hitting mixtapes with some great producers on them like Mike Will Made It and Zaytoven. And he actually got quite a bit of buzz off these projects. And after doing a series of just these shorter, high-octane projects, he's kind of taking that same approach with this new album over here, which the standard version of it is just about 45 minutes, 13 tracks. It's pretty stingy with the features, and there's not really much here in the way of illustrious production or songwriting or anything like that. Many of the songs here are relatively straightforward and incredibly simple, to the point where the choruses on the instrumental, and maybe even in terms of the flow and the melody on the track, don't really have that much of a difference from what the verses are doing. A lot of the songs here are very similar in sound as well. The instrumentals here, of course, take on a strong trap flavor with those rattling hi-hats, the crispy snares, the heavy, massive sub-bass, and there's some pretty glossy, pristine synths and melodies laced into this trap-style percussion too. And there are a few bangers here, which are pretty fantastic, but many of the songs here are low-key. And lyrically, I would say that Future is maybe a little bit more intelligible than usual, though, I don't know, his lyrics aren't really anything to write home about, unless you want to hear him talking about sticking his thumb in the butt of some lady he's having sexual relations with. Oh boy! I'm sure you can guess what the song Freak Ho is about. And the intro on here, we have Future talking about fucking your bitch in some Gucci flip-flops. And talking about how he thought it was a drought of a particular type of, codeine, cough, medicine sort of drug. But hey, we got it. And that was a relief, because I was worried. I was legitimately worried about, whether we were going to get any lean. And this intro track, along with many of the other drug-themed songs on this record, actually take a somewhat dark tone, especially on I Serve the Bass, which does have a very grimy beat to it, even if Future's performance on there vocally is a little monotone and flat. And again, the lyrics, not really anything too deep going on here, but while there's no one deep super deep moment on this record, it all kind of blends together into a sort of concept record about inebriation, which I think also comes through in the very druggy, intoxicated feel that a lot of the instrumentals here have too. And in my opinion, we haven't had a great rap record or mixtape that plays so heavily on those themes of drugs and inebriation and intoxication since Live Love ASAP. And I don't necessarily feel like I'm just listening to club bangers or hits or songs on this record or just listening to Future do a performance or hear him on a stage. I feel like, in a sense, I'm really listening into his mind. I'm getting a peek into his lean-drenched musical world, especially on moments where he says he's going to take a piss and just codeine is coming out. And I would say there's even a somewhat reflective moment on this record with the song Blood on the Money, where Future is talking about just counting up all this money, but the money that he's counting, the money he's talking about, comes at a price. A lot of lives of a lot of people caught up in this black market of codeine and Sprite and styrofoam cups. But I wouldn't say Future always comes off this reflective and, I don't know, I guess self-aware. Especially on the end of the song Slave Master, where we kind of have this refrain where he's saying over and over, long live ASAP Yams, long live ASAP Yams, which I'm sure in one breath the mob, the ASAP mob that is, appreciates the shadow, appreciates the tribute. But considering the death of ASAP Yams, the cause of his death, and how this album is just one fat, big, lean endorsement, bad idea? Still, most of the time I do think this album comes off very alluring in its own way, with its repetitive flows and its kind of hypnotic beats. Like on the song Where You At, and the song Thought It Was a Drought, and Blood on the Money, and Colossal, and the song Little One, which is a really hard-hitting banger on here, which samples this woman screaming her brains out, and the song Groupie, which is maybe the most hard-hitting song in the track listing here. Like a lot of Southern hip-hop, Future circles around a lot of very repetitive hooks. He repeats phrases over and over and over and over and over, unashamedly. And while this does cause some songs to fall kind of flat and just not sound that interesting or dynamic, it does give this record a really weird feel of just being the musical representation of like an endless high. And while I don't think this is that bad of a sound or a direction for maybe the first 4 tracks or so, this album's vibe, its flavor, its lack of great flows, its lack of lyrical ability, its lack of songwriting. I would say this record, in a way, is just as song deficient as Young Thug's Barter 6, which really could have used some better writing to come together with some hard-hitting singles, like on that Rich Gang mixtape. But Young Thug, with that track he did with Jamie XX, as well as a new single he just dropped recently, does give me hope for some catchier songs to come down the pipe. Plus, I think vocally he's a little more dynamic than Future, but that's really another discussion. The point is, Future's lack of vocal and lyrical ability starts making this record feel super stale and just boring, especially around the point of songs like Freako and Rotation. Future just doesn't really have that great of a melodic sense for a guy who tries to sing so often. Just listen to the song Blow a Bag, where I just wonder, does he write any of these melodies, or does he just kind of go off his head and just whatever notes pop in his head and fit into the instrumental melodically just goes into the instrumental because it just sounds okay. And then there are songs like Rich Sex, which can't stand the lyrics on this song, but I don't mind the melody, the vocal melody. And it's cool. It's a sweet vocal melody matched with a very tender instrumental, but Future's lack of a melodic sensibility doesn't allow him to work outside this melody almost at all throughout the duration of the track, with maybe the exception of like a moment around the middle point where he kind of does a little vocal improvisation that doesn't sound that good. Still though, I thought in a way this project was an improvement on Honest, and I thought it was at least cohesive sonically and thematically, and I did think it had an interesting vibe and aesthetic to it, and it did have its moments where it subdued me with its lean-flavored charms. But if you're not into these Atlanta crooners that aren't really saying anything lyrically over these trap-style instrumentals and are subsisting mostly on a diet of lean, then you're probably not going to get that much out of this project. I, however, just thought some moments were really catchy. I thought a lot of the instrumentals were very sweet, and I thought that it bordered on being an interesting listen from the standpoint of, whoa, this is a really druggy, just thick, hazy, intoxicating record. Beyond that, I don't really think Future has much of anything going on this record. I'm feeling a strong 5 to a light 6 on this LP. Transition, have you given this record a listen? When you listened to it, were you sipping on some lean? If you were, let me know. Anthony Fantano, Future, DS2, forever.